Good morning to each and everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Enterprise Digital Transformation ASRA Conference 2022. We have four more tracks lined up for you today and hope everyone will enjoy the rest of the conference. And again, we thank everyone for taking the time to attend our two-day event. Again, we would like to thank all our sponsors for making this event possible. Our diamond sponsors, Neo4j, OpenText, and Freshworks. Our gold sponsors, Adobe and Tricentis. Our presentation sponsor, Fivetran, our knowledge sponsor, Elastic, and our exhibitor sponsors, Gorgeous, KMS Solutions, Epier, and IT Group. All of our sponsors have their respective booths over at the booth section of the platform. If you have any inquiries or would like to know more about their solutions, you can pay them a visit anytime during the event. Some of them even have free downloadable content and free gifts to give away. Lastly, again, a few reminders to all of our attendees. On your right-hand side is the chat box. You can send your comments here. Right beside that is the questions tab. You can send any of your questions to any of our speakers or panelists, and all of them would be more than happy to answer during or after their presentations. And then lastly, we have the polls tab. Some of our presentations have polls, and we'd like to request all of you to give the time to answer these, as we appreciate everyone's feedback and participation. To start things off for our second day of the event is the Intelligent Automation track. We have a presentation by David Caldwell, Vice President of AI and Machine Learning at Tricentis, on enabling low-code, no-code testing with AI.
Presentation on screen right now. It might swap briefly back to this until I move it away. Beautiful. Thank you to whoever has found the loves, the hearts, and thumbs up buttons on the emojis. Really enjoying the interaction. So, thank you to everyone dialing in from, I understand, Singapore, India, and Australia, and some people even in New Zealand today. It's really good to be with you all to give you some information on artificial intelligence and low-code automation. Before I start, I'll give you a brief introduction to myself. My name is David, but I go by Dave. I'm the Vice President of AI and Machine Learning at Tricentis, and I think what I do for work, that's interesting. Don't get me wrong, I love artificial intelligence. It's this rapidly changing and evolving technology landscape. But I think more interesting than what I do for work is a little bit about me personally. I love to build things. I love to build furniture. I love to build structures. I love to build, in this case, boats with my kids as an activity to help me and them have some bonding time. And I think the reason that I love building things so much is because we live in this world where everything's virtual. We create software, we build tests, and all these things, you never really see and feel it. And so I love, after work, getting out there and just doing something with my hands. And I think that tells you probably quite a lot about me. It also probably tells you a little bit about how this presentation is going to go. We're going to be trying to do this in the form of a story. So instead of trying to talk at you and tell you all about artificial intelligence and what it is and how it works and all the mechanics of it, that, to be honest, there are people that are much smarter than me on YouTube that can tell you that information. I'm going to give you a bit of this background that I have, my background in testing and quality assurance, and try to bring it into the world of artificial intelligence through the medium of travel. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to engage in a little bit of a thought experiment. Now, I've tried to localize this as much as I can. I'm going to use Singapore as the locale. I've only been to Singapore maybe 5 or 6 times during my life. And in this time, I was staying with a friend who lives up in the northern part of Singapore, and he lives in a province called Sengkang. And our job is to travel, and we need to go to a particular location, the Balestier Plaza. And the purpose of this trip is to engage in some shopping. So that's our requirement, to go from my house in northern Singapore in Sengkang down to the Balestier Plaza to engage in some shopping. And if I was trying to design test cases around this, I would need to start to elaborate on that requirement a little bit. So let's do this. I know one thing about my shopping trip. I've got a fairly big list of things that I'm going to need to go out and get. So, okay, big list of things, that's going to require a vehicle. I also know that for those of you that are from Singapore, the cost to get a vehicle registered is moderately expensive. So we're going to go all out. We're getting a really good car because price difference between that and a Prius probably isn't that big. So now we've clarified our requirement. We've got a big list of shopping to get from the Belezia Plaza. We live currently in Sengkang, and we're going to require a car. So we've clarified our requirements. We've nailed it down. Next thing, we need to plan our route. Now, many of you wouldn't need me to tell you how to plan the route. I give you my address and you'd probably go, yep, I know where that is. I can use my past experience to be able to find my way to that, to Belezia Plaza. I don't need anything external. I've lived in Singapore for years and years. I can do this all on my own. But there's some of you that are like me. You're not from Singapore. You don't have that past experience. And so whereas an experienced subject matter expert would be able to do it off the top of their head by the experience that they have, us that are newer to the domain would need some assistance. Now, in the testing world, often this assistance comes in the form of documentation. Now, I don't know if any of you remember this, but there is a form of documentation for streets. That is the street directory. And I actually found out that there was a 2020 edition of the Mighty Minds Street Directory printed for Singapore. Who knew? I don't know who it's being printed for, but it does exist out there. And so we might need to go through and read the documentation. Now, here's where it gets a little bit difficult because that person that has deep experience is very easily able to create a test case like that. They can map the path through the application super quickly. But the people that don't have that experience, they need to build it from gathering experience from these documents. And that can take time. I don't know if any of you remember trying to navigate with street directories, trying to find the C4 where the street is labeled and move your way around. And then you try to say, oh, should I be turning left or should I be turning right here? I don't know. Let me sort of move a bit further along. And that's, oh, no, wait, that's a one-way road. It was a painful experience. And in testing, when you're new to the domain, that can be a painful experience too, trying to make your way through the app, make your way through the domain, figure out what everything means. It can be really difficult for somebody that's just come in. And so an experienced person, great, they probably know their way. An inexperienced person, they need a bit of guidance. So now we've got our test, we've clarified our requirement, it's time to execute it. And there's one thing that I know is common to India, Australia, Singapore, and New Zealand, and that is that as soon as you get in the car to drive, to execute that test, you're probably going to get stuck in traffic. I live in Sydney, Australia, and at the moment, the traffic is not that bad, comparatively speaking. I've been to Mumbai in India, and I can say comparatively the traffic is nothing. But also, I made the mistake of trying to get to the airport in Singapore to travel home during peak hour. And what looked like quite a short trip on the map turned out to take nearly 3/4 of an hour. The feeling of driving in traffic is similar to that feeling of running a test manually. You're doing something, you're just kind of like, okay, I know where I need to go. It's just taking a while to get there. I wish that there was a way that I could make this whole process of figuring out what I need to test, creating that test, the plan, and executing that test. I need something to help me make that faster. And the good news is that most organizations are in the same boat. And we got these figures externally. This is actually from the GitLab DevSecOps survey from 2021. And I was shocked that still 80% of the testing that was being invested in was still being done manually, even in these fast organizations. This was slowing down deployments, costing people a lot in maintenance, and it was resulting in low risk coverage and low end-to-end automation. But hang on, automation, that's it? We don't need to drive the car manually. We can get a robot to drive the car for us. This is the automated approach. Why are we talking about manual? The robot can drive the car. Can't it? Well, this was what we thought. This was the initial, I guess, some people would say snake oil, but this was the dream that we were sold in testing was, well, you're not going to be the one running these test cases anymore. You just write some automation, cut the script, and then let the robot drive for you. Let the robot will take your app and he will cover it off. It would be just like trying to get a robot and get him to drive you to your destination. And just like this guy in the background here looks a little bit skeptical of being driven by his robot, testers the world over were a little bit skeptical of this dream that we'd be able to just have robots take all of this work over for us. And the reason is because just like a road, our applications are subject to change, shall we say. These changes come in a lot of different ways and a lot of different shapes. It could be things like application changes, these detours in the road. It could be that your app's performance is unreliable in whatever environment you have it in, your testing or dev environment. The app could encounter bugs, unexpected environmental issues or pop-ups. And all of these things are not necessarily a problem for a skilled driver like yourself or in this example, for a manual tester, we didn't really notice these things. If you had to wait 10 seconds instead of 20 seconds, didn't really cause any problems. You're just slightly more irritated that the traffic jam was long. But robots, they're not very dynamic. They get their instructions and they run through these instructions. In fact, that's kind of what we want them to do. We don't want them getting adventurous and going off and doing their own thing. But that means that they have a certain script that they're running to. And when deviations from that script happen, the robot breaks. And you can be smarter or less smart about how you build the script, but at the end of the day, you're telling them to do something very discrete, and the robot does not have very much intelligence to be able to decide which direction to go, to the left or to the right. And this results in fragile automation. It requires a lot of skill to build. It's very technical. You end up with code being to test the code. And it makes it very difficult to understand what's important. The example script that I got there was very complex. It was actually doing something moderately complex, but even me as a person that writes and understands code on the regular, it would take me quite a long time to understand what that script was doing. So definitely more towards the street directory style of navigation than something more elegant. So we've thought, okay, manual is hard, it's time consuming, but at least we know it works reliably. Automation, that's fast, but it can't adapt in the way that our manual brains can, and it requires a very high degree of technical expertise. So we're kind of stuck in a bit of a jam. We've got these problems. It's hard to build this good test. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of work. It's not something that's fun to execute in any meaningful way, and it's difficult to make it adapt to change. These three problems are really the core problems that have been driving testers nutty for the last 20 years or so. And if I just said, okay, we've got these three problems, that's it, talk over, then that wouldn't be a very motivating talk. What I'm going to do now is show you in two phases the journey that's in front of us and what we can do to deal with these core problems. Some of it is going to be things that you can take away and do today, things that you can just pull open source libraries or improve your skill sets or hire the right people, and you'll be able to fix some of these problems or at least improve them. And some of it is going to require artificial intelligence. When we talk about artificial intelligence, it's sort of inevitable that we start talking about tooling, because artificial intelligence either needs a company with a deep investment in deep learning, machine learning engineers and data scientists, or you can basically pay someone else to have done all that for you. So where do we want to end up? Well, in the same way that we kind of want our our cars to end up being self-driving so that we can focus on what we want to do, which might be reading the newspaper, although personally I do like a good audio book. We kind of want all of those boring parts of testing, the parts that aren't really adding value, they're just consuming time. We want a machine to be able to take those away from us, to make those parts of our job disappear so we can focus on what's important. In this gentleman's case, apparently page 6 is quite important. But in our case, we have other things that we need to be dealing with. We've got the bigger questions of where is our coverage missing? What are our outstanding risks? How are we going to go about optimizing these test portfolios? Problems that require a much, much higher brain power than the problem of my test just broke. What code do I need to update to fix it? So this is the goal, and that goal is generally accepted to be reached in 2 stages. Where we are at the moment, the sort of script-based test automation is going to evolve into a model-based or no-code automated approach. And that's where we're going to focus a fair bit of the remaining part of this talk on what is no-code and how do we get there. But we're also going to be showing you some of the next generation after that, which is the AI-powered automation. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how deep learning, the most advanced current form of neural networks in machine learning, are able to accelerate automation beyond even what we can achieve with no code. So the foundations of no-code testing are, in fact, the inversions of the problems that we had before. The problems that we had before were that it takes a long time to write good tests. We've got have to drive them manually, and that we need to deal with changes. So to solve that, we need rapid test authoring that's accessible to everyone, hands-off test execution where it can run by itself, and a machine that knows how to navigate that road, a machine that knows how to deal with changes in the application. And when we talk about rapid test authoring, the current state is generally accepted that testing happens after the build. You need an app in order to test an app. However, we focus time on saying, well, how can we use low-code techniques to enable more people, simplified record and replay, more people involved? We want to shrink that window. We want to bring it down. And this is a form of rapid test authoring. In fact, it's the most popular form at the moment. And there's tooling out there at the moment that can help you with this, things like Testin or Cypress or many of the other libraries that just make it much easier, much more accessible to code and much more accessible to build with no code. However, if we really want to move fast, we actually need to think a bit more about shifting that window. Can we move the testing window from happening after the build to happening during the plan and during the build? And that's where something like deep learning automation will come in, that third generation of test-driven automations. So let's have an example of this. This is a research project that Tricentis did back in 2020. It actually turned into a product that we called Vision AI. We based it on the premise that you should teach a machine, instead of looking at HTML and Java and everything else, to see the screen in the same way a human does. So here we had a human doing a test, and the AI was watching them and annotating the screen, saying the inputs in orange, the tables in blue, the tab bars in green, and so on and so forth. The different controls were all annotated on the screen by the artificial intelligence. And the goal of this was to try to make our automation more like the humans, because we know humans don't have problems dealing with changes in applications or even drastic changes in technology. So if we can bring the artificial intelligence closer to a human understanding of the application, then we can use them to enable the construction of automation before the test case is ready and the stabilization of that automation. And the result after we'd built this product was that you could take an existing test case, and in this case, we had a requirement. And that requirement was pretty simple. We've added a new field, this fuel type field. But the app is not yet ready. All we have is a mock-up that was given to us during the design. So using Vision AI, we were able to say, that's not a problem. You can scan that mock-up. You can build a test based off that mock-up. and your entire test with no code involved, so again, the generation from no code to AI-driven automation, you can have that test built and ready, even though, as you see here, the application doesn't actually have a fuel type field in it. The code hasn't been written, but the test is ready. The test is failing because the app isn't ready, but the test is ready before the app is even built. This is truly shifting the testing barrier from being over here at the end of the cycle to being during the development. So now let's update. The code is ready. Great. The fuel type dropdown is now present. Don't change the test at all. The test has been ready from the start. Let's just run it. Okay. We can run it against the mockup, or we can run it against the real app. And here, with no change to the test keeps running. This is how AI can really change the game, because if we were to just consider things in terms of the scripts you can write and the automation you can do without the machine there, we'd never approach this degree of speed. AI is the only way that you're going to be able to move beyond the consideration of just the app to enable you to build the automation before the app is ready. In this case, deep learning driven automation systems. It's the only way that we're able to achieve fully stable hands-off execution and make our changes resilient no matter what the application does. So that's my talk for you all today. Thank you very much for your time. I will be taking questions for the remainder of this period. And I'm going to bring Alec back in.
Thank you very much indeed, David. It's a great session. So it's really topical at the moment, because we hear more and more questions, and we're putting these conferences together. People wanting to know about low code, no code, and AI. It's certainly very hot topics right now. So thank you. I'll just look at the questions. There's a few coming in. Should I read them out and then pick a few?
I might pick some of these because we're getting quite a few.
Sure, no problem. I'll hover in the background and.
Thank you, Alec. Just give me a timeout because I could read these questions all day. I love it.
No problem. We've got about 9 minutes, I think, before we need to go.
All right, perfect.
Demo session.
I like this first one. What are the limitations of no-code AI as per you, and how to overcome them? That's a really good question. There are limitations of no-code and limitations of AI-driven testing, and those limitations usually occur when you need very deep control over certain parts of the application. So let me give you an example. We were testing an application for a customer. They're a stock exchange customer based out of Sweden. And when we were testing this application, the no-code tooling was built around general no-code concepts. It understands the apps in general ways. But their app needed a very specific way of setting and removing browser cookies during the application. Specifically, you needed to write a particular piece of code, an algorithm, to be able to set and unset those cookies and to encode the values into those cookies in the way that the app understood. Otherwise, it just didn't work. The no-code part took care of the UI just fine. It took it driving the APIs and all of that. But this very specific application behavior, if we didn't have a capability within the no-code to still dive into code when it's required, then you get blocked. You kind of get stuck at that point. So it sounds controversial, but whenever you're looking at a no-code or an AI-driven platform, something you should always ask is there a way out of this? Is that the only way we say to do it? Whether you build the no-code platform yourself or whether you buy one off the shelf. If you're saying the only way to do this is by using the no-code component of this platform, it's inevitable that at some point you'll run into a situation that the platform has not been designed to deal with. And if you don't have an exit from that at that point, then you're going to get stuck. The next one is around security. Security is the utmost priority, not just at the moment, but for a long time now. Very good point, Oscar. How safe are low no-code platforms? They the low or no codeness of it doesn't really have much of a bearing on the platform itself. Some questions, though, that I would recommend you ask are mostly focused around data, actually. A lot of low and no code platforms will require your data in one way or another. So you should look at, do they train using your live data? How do they store that data? What is done with that data and who has access to that data? In addition, you should look at execution ingress whenever you're using a platform-based execution. So, for example, if the execution comes in from the cloud, then ask, what can that do? Once that agent is in my environment, can it run anything? Can it fire off command? These are some of the questions that you should ask, not necessarily just about low no-code test platforms, although the training data is very specific to AI-based ones, but any cloud-based or external testing platform. Dig into those two places, because in my experience, they're the biggest parts of the security holes that you see. Is low no code going to be the future of AI? Low no code currently looks like the future of a large number of different technological directions at the moment. We're seeing low no code app building. We're also seeing low no code AI creation. There's some wonderful tools out there. I think Microsoft makes a good one. Amazon SageMaker is a great example, where they're trying to even make the task of building an artificial intelligence something that you can do without code. So I think low no-code testing within artificial intelligence low no-code testing and artificial intelligence enabling that is at very least going to be the future of the next few years of testing. I don't see if there's a question in here. I don't see if there's a question in here about the next generation of testing after that, but I'll provide my opinion on it anyway. I don't believe that we're going to really get to the point where it's fully hands-off, where the testing car drives itself completely. And the reason for that is I believe the test will be able to drive you. So the platform will be able to drive you, but I don't believe it'll be able to tell you if it is seeing the right thing without a human intervention. For example, I created an account and then I processed a transaction. What should the new account balance be? Well, that's not a super simple question to answer. You need to model the behavior of the application. So I believe that the future of testing and artificial intelligence is going to be low no-code results, AIs augmenting humans, not AIs being our robot overlords, to steal a phrase from The Simpsons. Do we have a few industries or products targeted that it suits best? In general, if you're using AI-based platforms, your biggest industry divider is going to be data privacy and concerns. As long as your organization is comfortable with cloud, it works moderately well. And on our low no-code platforms, we've got even really conservative organizations, Swiss banks, government organizations, everyone. One where it is a little difficult at times to use the low no-code, like the AI part of that, is in defense research and health sciences. Anywhere where you have really strict NDAs and air-gapped environments are often quite problematic. According to Google Trends, the interest in no-code ML is increasing, but people interested in traditional ML are far ahead. Your views? Look, traditional ML is miles ahead of the capabilities of low no-code machine learning. And here, when you're talking about the Google trend, the specific categories that are being trended there is machine learning as a capability and low no-code ML platforms like SageMaker and Azure Deep Learning ecosystem. And the reason for that is because AI is still very much an evolving discipline. Every day there's a new research paper out saying, I've just discovered a new way of optimizing our algorithms. And the low no-code platforms, they take time to adapt to that. So generally the cutting edge is occupied by the code and the manually created artificial intelligence researchers, and the low no-code platforms deal with the bulk of the implementing what already exists, which is why you'll see the differential and the spike interest between them. However, one interesting caveat to that is if you then apply that to other industries, low no code app dev, for example, tools like Salesforce have been low no code for a long time, and testing has become a much more mature discipline. So low no code is now, much more suited to the testing world. In the same way that once machine learning starts to sort of become a more mature discipline, you'll see that low no code spike above the traditional ML tactics.
Right. Thank you, David. If you have any questions regarding David's presentation or their solutions, you can go visit Tricentis over the Tricentis booth, and David's colleagues would be more than happy to assist any of you. Up next, we have a presentation by Felicity Burrows, SI Alliance Manager, Asia Pacific at Fivetran Incorporated, on making access to data as simple and reliable as electricity.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I'm Felicity, an Alliance Manager here at Fivetran based in Singapore, and I'm going to discuss some of the fundamentals to ensure that you're in the best position to maximize your data. Access to data is no longer optional. Data is embedded in every decision, interaction, and process, and data is only ever increasing. According to IDC, the global data sphere is expected to more than double in size from 2022 to 2026. Challenges that come with a constant increase in data include having a single source of truth instead of many siloed versions, having access to data, and the speed in which it takes to access that data. Now we're in the fourth industrial revolution where AI and data impact the way people live and work today. You're probably all familiar with economists and data experts comparing data as the new oil, and we're shifting from traditional industry to a time based on information technology. It can be argued that the most important general purpose technology of our era is AI, in particular machine learning, and every industry can transform their processes and business models to take advantage of machine learning. So how do we drive the data train instead of chasing after it? What if waiting to adopt AI means it will be impossible to catch up? Some companies are taking the fast follower strategy, but is that a good idea? And then the other thing to consider is that you have to put the right fuel in the train too, right? So if you don't put the right fuel in your car, it won't be able to drive. So why are so many companies trying to do analytics, AI, machine learning without ensuring that they have the right data and all of that data in the first place? You really need to ensure that the back end, or as in this image here, that the fuel is right. So to be able to utilize and maximize the value of your data, you need to be able to access data, ensure it's clean, fresh, and where you need it when you need it. So how to utilize and maximize the value of your data. As you can see in this pyramid, there's a lot of considerations and processes that need to be identified. The top of this pyramid in AI and deep learning is the real epitome of data lakes and data-driven companies. But to get there, we need 5 solid layers of foundations to enable our pyramid to have a shining golden top. Without the foundational layer, you can't actually do any of the piece above. So to get to AI and ML, you need to have a data culture, and that starts with getting access to your data. Here, I've outlined some of the complexities that go into creating a data lake foundation. Moving data into your data lake is of vital importance to be able to build the rest of your pyramid. A data lake is not very useful without your data. Moving data from point A to point B does not add a lot of business value in itself. However, it unlocks the vast potential of a data lake and is therefore a really key foundational component. Today, we have a huge abundance of data sources. Creating a pipeline for each source is time-consuming and quickly becomes a resource bottleneck when that's times 10, 50, or 100 plus sources. And to compound that problem, each source will have different complexities, such as APIs or databases that require different expertise to reliably consume. And lastly, maintaining data pipelines after they've been deployed can also be costly. Schema drift, data type changes, failures can all add up to take around 40% of your time that can be better spent on more valuable tasks higher up the pyramid. We are in a time where we don't need to be wasting valuable resource on invaluable work. And beyond the eye-popping cost that we have saw companies spending, The manual approach to data pipelines is a huge waste of time and talent. In this white-hot labor market, companies are spending big on top talent to try to make the most of their data. Yet most data and analytics leaders say their team's time is being wasted on manual oversight of data pipelines. Time sunk into this takes away from engineers' ability to provide more advanced analysis. As data leaders say, this is the top area that engineers could contribute to if they weren't manually building data pipelines. So how to get to good data? You first need to centralize it and automate your data pipelines. Fivetran can help by taking data from all those different operational systems that are out there, whether it's cloud applications, databases, files, events, and moving that data into a modern data warehouse. And once it's in there, you can have access to all your data in a centralized location. So you can use that data to do internal analytics, AI, ML, drive insights, and make data-driven decisions. And the way to do that is through an ELT approach. So on the left-hand side, you have that classical ETL approach where you extract the data, perform the transformation all outside of the data warehouse, and load that transformed data in the warehouse and run, say, a BI tool, visualization tool on top of that. On the right-hand side, this is how Fivetran approaches the same problem. We extract the data from the source. Instead of doing ETL, we're doing ELT. We're loading all of that straight into the data warehouse. And then from there, you can start to do those transformations inside the warehouse. And if something changes, all you have to do is redo that final transformation rather than go all the way back to the extract piece and then the transform and the load again and adjust. So it's taking a couple of steps out of that process, which is obviously very beneficial when you're doing business at scale. The benefits to have an automated data collection tool moving data into your data lake are numerous. It will save data engineers spending time building and maintaining pipelines and help teams to be more productive. It can accelerate tools like Dataproc by having a wide variety of data sources centralized quickly, and it can refocus time during data lake projects from filling the data lake to actually utilizing the data lake. So what exactly is Fivetran? Fivetran is a fully managed data pipeline as a service. There's no maintenance, no configuration, no coding. It's super easy to use. We have almost 200 connectors out of the box that you can plug and play with. And the majority of these do come with predefined schemas. And you can get that set up in less than 5 minutes. So you can really take away that manual labor that comes with building ETL pipelines. And we're doing all of this automation, scalability, and security with an incredibly amount of reliability and support. We've got over 200 engineers ensuring your data is where you need it, when you need it, with our data delivery guarantee and a 99.9% platform uptime, syncing massive amounts of data and maintaining an incredible number of sources for over 4,000 customers. So Databricks are a partner of ours, but they're also a customer. The problem that they had was, as they rapidly expanded, the need for centralized and documented data became more and more apparent. Data silos were appearing around the business. Data was cobbled together through notebooks, Alteryx, and legacy pipelines from central teams. It wasn't a scalable approach. Stakeholders weren't able to discern if an insight was real or simply a data quality issue. And Chris's team lost trust from stakeholders every time their data didn't line up with source systems. This hampered planning, budget allocation, and other decision making. The solution was that Chris was looking for a low-code turnkey solution that would give his team the reliable pipelines that they needed. So they immediately set up Fivetran. It stood out as a solution for their data pipeline needs, and they now use Fivetran from all of their core marketing source systems like Marketo, Salesforce, Facebook ads, and Google Analytics. Once in their lakehouse, Chris's team joins the data with all the other sources from products and central teams, transforming it in a meaningful way to run data science, machine learning, and generate a vital Tableau dashboards for analysis. And the outcome? Chris now supports a rapidly growing data team of analysts and leaders who in turn deliver crucial insights to over 90 marketers. In total, Fivetran saves Databricks over 40 hours a month in engineering time. And by bringing on Fivetran to handle data ingestion, Chris freed up time to build a full suite of Tableau dashboards that answer the most common questions that his marketing team face, saving his team time and allowing them to focus on adding value with data science and machine learning projects. Access to reliable data has been critical for marketing account managers who are now more accountable for the forecast that they're making. Increased visibility through sophisticated dashboards has made it easier for teams to track and rapidly expand on campaign performance. So thank you so much for taking the time to join. We are out of time. We've got many more case studies that you can take a look at over on our website. And if you do have any questions, please do catch me over at the Fivetran booth.
All right. Thank you, Felicity. As what Felicity said, you can catch her if you have any questions regarding her presentation, or if you just want to know more about Fivetran solutions, please do visit the Fivetran booth, and the Fivetran team is more than happy to assist any of you. Okay, up next, we have a presentation by Lawrence Ziller, Executive Director at the Italian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, on Is the Industrial Automation Looming in the Philippines? Over to you, Lawrence.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the time you're giving me here today. Let me see if I can share the presentation here. So today we're taking a more holistic approach and looking at automation and what is industrial automation. In fact, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, we are enablers of investments that go into automation. We're bringing businesses together. We're bringing Italian, European know-how to the Philippines and trying to match that with the local demand. In fact, we are trying to solve local problems. So what is industrial automation? So let's start from zero so we understand the whole picture then when we come to the Philippines. So it is the control of machinery and processes used in various industries by autonomous systems through the use of technologies like robotics and computer software. So basically machines, robotics, and software. And we will get to the AI later. So what are the key advantages of automation, especially in manufacturing? That is the standardization of a product, meaning also the consistency in quality, because we don't want to have a square product and a triangle product the next time. It's the efficiency of resources, and that includes also manpower, as well as raw materials. And the manufacturing productivity. Now you imagine you have a huge order and you know you need to manufacture 1,000 pieces of some product a day. And with automation, that speeds up the whole process of manufacturing, can really benefit the productivity and in the end also the profits of the entrepreneur. So looking back in history, now you have to imagine the Philippines has a very own story, especially in its industrialization. So history-wise, we have seen the first industrial revolution was the mechanization with the locomotives, the steam-powered engines. Then the second one was the mass production with the assembly line, thanks to the electricity. The third, the advent of the computer and automation. So that really started the fast production. And the fourth industrial revolution, which we are witnessing, is the one where we connect all these manufacturing tools and robots to the cyber physical systems. Now, in the Philippines, in some sectors, we are still stuck in mechanization if we are looking at just the agricultural sector, but we will get to that. So intelligent automation is robots and data with AI. It's an automation solution enhanced with cognitive capabilities that enable programs and machines to learn. So thanks to sensors, thanks to testing machines who will then send the data to the controller, and then it will decide the correct activity to undertake. So, in fact, before we heard about data, I have to underline, so data is absolutely important, crucial for intelligent automation, because it is thanks to data, so data collection, data analysis, and later on, of course, data visualization, that the right decisions can be taken by AI systems. And this represents basically what I just said. So the robotic processes mixed with data and artificial intelligence bring us to an intelligent process of automation. So, and that brings us to the industrial Internet of Things. In fact, we have heard about the Internet of Things where all our devices are connected and speak to each other. It's pretty much the same on an industry level for manufacturing, for example, or even logistics. So the industrial Internet of Things refers to interconnected sensors, instruments, and other devices networked together with computers, industrial applications, including manufacturing and energy management. So, and in fact, data is very crucial for all this system to work. So the Philippines, from mechanization to automation and IoT. So that is the Internet of Things. So as I mentioned, there is some areas in the Philippines which still lag behind and are still not done with mechanization. But let's look at it in the ASEAN framework. How does that work? So we have in the Philippines what DTI calls the Inclusive Industrial Strategy, which focuses on IT business process management, electronics and electrical equipments, automotive, aerospace parts, agribusiness, construction, transport, logistics, furniture and garments, shipbuilding, iron and steel. Now, compared to other countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, of course, Thailand is very much ahead of time. In fact, they're already talking about S-curve industries and other things which are showing that basically Thailand has received the necessary investments, especially from other countries, and for example, Japan, to be ahead compared to its peers. And a lot of investment has gone into Vietnam recently, especially in the past 10 years, because Vietnam has opened up, has abolished their ownership restrictions, and is very much open to do business, has a very good business climate, and is welcoming investors. So these are key advantages, and the Philippines needs to catch up with this, and we're going to see. I'm very hopeful that the Philippines will be able to catch up with its peers over the next 5 to 10 years. So the Philippines focuses basically at the moment on these areas. Of course, I leave aside the semiconductors and electronic equipment because that's already going, but the focus area is really in agriculture. I know that we are still talking about mechanization and how to get all these farmers who don't have the money to buy their tools and to buy tractors or their equipment. So how does the government get them to be to access finance? So that is one of the challenges that need to be resolved. But we have seen bigger companies and entrepreneurs already going into automated systems also in agriculture, and that is a good sign. And maybe with a little bit of concerted efforts by everyone, this gap with other countries can be closed and the productivity of agriculture can be enhanced. And there goes also logistics, because logistics plays a very, very important part in agriculture, manufacturing, and everything, and just getting everything around the country. We have seen a big push by logistic companies to automate and really jump in with the Internet of Things. So at any point in time, you can see what is happening, where parcels or packages are going, what is the situation in the warehouses, and so on. And of course, manufacturing, because manufacturing, the new government has really said it would try to push and incentive manufacturing and foreign investments, because that is what the country needs to foster new employment and also create some of the jobs which, let's say, modern jobs, which can benefit the Filipinos, especially if they one day want to go abroad or to Singapore or to the US or anywhere in Europe. At least the automation jobs and all the jobs around AI can prepare also the next generation of Filipinos to the future. So the Philippines in ASEAN, what are the main issues and constraints of the Philippines? Now, that is said by DTI in 2017. So infrastructure and logistics. So we have a high cost and the unpredictability of power. So the Philippines has, in fact, the highest cost of power in the ASEAN, and also a very high cost of domestic shipping. So that is really an issue. Governance and regulation. So smuggling, corruption, bureaucracy, and red tape is still an issue. And lack of streamlining and automation of business procedures as well. In fact, I know there is going to be a very big push to sort out the streamlining and automation of business procedures, especially in government. And that will help a lot also along the line of the whole economy. So SME development, the lack of access to finance, technology, upgrade, inability to comply with product standard regulations. Then human resource deployment, lack of skilled workers and training. Innovation, so there is limited industry academe linkages for new product development and very limited R&D facilities. Now, from the supply and value chains, there's a lack of raw materials and intermediate parts and component manufacturers in the domestic market. That's, in fact, the gap that also the Italian Chamber is helping to close. So for foreign investor, and I'm talking from the point of view of a foreign investor, what is the most important thing? Well, that is, of course, incentives, fiscal incentives, and also non-fiscal incentives. Because there is a whole set of things. The Philippines is an ideal country to invest and to set up manufacturing, but it needs a little bit of push from the government to convince all these investors to come in or to partner with local companies. Because compared to our peers that in ASEAN, there is still a little gap to fill. Now, the growth drivers in the automation market. Now, why do I show this slide? Because this should really be an incentive for local companies who are in automation, and really also for the government to say, hey, this is what we can actually achieve by pushing for automation. So for the workforce shortages, due to shortages in human capital, businesses continue to rely on automation as way forward to fill the talent gaps. Now, but that at the same time also educates people to work with certain machinery or software programs, and that will be then a skilled workforce. Then the increased digitalization, rapid adoption of Internet of Things technologies, and the markets need to digitize will help drive market growth. monitoring requirements. So the increasing government, environmental, and cybersecurity monitoring requirements will force industries to leverage automation solutions. And that is something very interesting. We're talking about water, and we're talking about air. We are talking about many, many things that will be implemented to monitor the safety also of the population and the quality of the output of industries. Then productivity demands. Of course, investors demand the profits, and profits come from productive enterprises. So businesses continue to leverage controls and automation platforms to increase productivity and profits. Market education, experience control system integration providers are educating the market and deploying sophisticated offerings. And then the automation goals, of course, that is more political. Business leaders have expressed an increased interest in automation solutions as a result of the pandemic. And that is true. It is a trend. And in fact, the Philippines is very much on the way in certain areas with robotic process automation. Let's next slide. To get to Industry 4.0. And in fact, I'm very sure that we will get there, because we have seen the Philippines being outsourced for many things, for BPO, so business process outsourcing, so voice, non-voice, software production, creative industries, and also for this new push for automation. I believe that the Philippines has a great future to serve also other countries. Italy is really a technology partner in general, because from Leonardo da Vinci onwards, Italy has produced great minds, great scientists, great mathematicians, thinkers, architects, and so on and so forth. And now is also having great companies that offer solutions to Filipino companies, offer solutions in automation. And for Filipino companies, it is really, or it could be, a strategic market advantage to acquire technology and know-how from Italian companies. So that is really also what we do and what we stand for. So we help Filipino companies get in touch with Italian know-how and technology. And I just want to mention some of our members here of the Italian Chamber: Ozai Automation Systems, One of Asia, and Comi Group. And let's see what they do. So Comi automates, they produce machines in what sector? For household appliances, aerospace, automotive, hydrosanitary, marine, railway, mold and dye, and fiber. And what kind of machines are those? So thermoforming machines, presses, laser cutting machines, water jet cutting machines, CNC milling, automation in general, or robotics, metal sheet, and engineering. That is what they do. Then we have One of Asia, which is a very particular company, because they set up an office in Manila, and they have software engineers here. And what they're doing, they're programming these machines and how they should work. So their core business is electrical design to PLC programming, from motion control to vision systems, from data tracking to real-time ERP data exchange. So the PLC programming is an important task of designing and implementing control application depending on customers' needs. A PLC program consists of a set of instructions, either in textual or graphical form, which represents the logic to be implemented for specific industrial real-time applications. And then we have Ozai, which is also an automation company. They are producing testing machines and sensors for automation primarily, and then also laser cutting machines, and they're working very much also in the semiconductor industry. So we have, for example, these 3 companies who are ready to do business in the Philippines, and for which the Italian chamber is here to help. That brings me to the last slide, to the end of my little presentation, and I hope it was interesting enough to contact us. In fact, that is our contact details. Please don't hesitate. We are here to reply to your requests.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence, for that great presentation. Yeah, so you can just reach out directly to Lawrence through his contacts, or specifically at this event, you can reach out to Lawrence under the People tab and sending him a private message directly. Thanks again, Lawrence.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you.
All right, so that is a cap on our intelligent automation track. See everyone on the next